This is Northwest Reports. I'm Sarah Bernard. You're listening to the third episode of Northwest Reports Live, our series that showcases the conversations we had on May 31st at the Cascade PBS Ideas Festival. We talked to 4 influential Seattle changemakers about the good, the bad, and the complicated realities of living here. The guest you'll hear today is Kiesha B, who's done a lot in her career. She's been a speaker, facilitator, MC, stand-up comedian, and former business leader at Time and Microsoft. But today, we're going to dive more into her role as the founder of Hey Black Seattle, an online resource and movement that she created to connect and nurture Seattle's Black community. You'll hear her thoughts on why she started Hey Black Seattle, the myth that there are no Black people here, and whether the city's progressive reputation is well earned.
So Sarah just rattled off a long list of things that you have done in your career, but we want to focus first on your stand-up, which started in Seattle. Can you talk a little bit about how and why that got started?
I love this because I was working at Microsoft at the time that I started doing stand-up, and it was one of those things where people were like, are you really going to go start telling jokes? I had a boss at Microsoft say, you know, we want people to take you seriously here. You're on the track to be a CVP, and if people see you telling jokes, I was like, I have to do it. I have to do it. It was on my list of things that I wanted to do in life, and there was one day that I was having dinner with my daughter and my then husband and my sister talking about our bucket list. And I was getting all of this advice about practical reasons why not to do X, Y, and Z. And my daughter, who was 7 at the time, just told me, Mommy, let your dreams be free. And then she took me to her room afterwards and closed the door and pulled me down and put her hands on my face and said, I wanted to make sure you heard me. I said, let your dreams be free. So the very next day, I signed up for a stand-up comedy workshop and I got going. And that was in 2017, and I haven't stopped since.
Oh my gosh. That's so sweet. How old was your daughter?
She was 7.
Oh my gosh.
So she's 14 now. So it was 7 years ago. She schooled me, and this was in defiance. Like, her dad was saying all these reasons why you shouldn't do X, Y, and Z. And she was a kid, and she just said, Mom, let your dreams be free. That's why I do comedy. She changed our whole life. Everything's been different since then.
Can I ask you what kind of themes come up in your comedy?
So I like to use comedy as a tool to teach or like help people see things that I find a little ridiculous about society that maybe they haven't noticed. So an example of that would be, I counted all of the people named Kiesha that worked in corporate at Microsoft when I first started. And so I brought that information. I was like, I'm going to call myself a Kieshologist and tell the people how many Kieshas there were, how many corporate Kieshas we have. And I thought it was a funny way to highlight that was something that I even had to care about. Like that is a countable name of people at that particular corporation is really huge. And so it's things like that I want to just, from my lens, when I notice we're at the cash register and this corporation is asking me if I want to donate money to the children. And I'm like, don't you have money for the children? Why are you asking me? And so I like to tell jokes about those types of things, little pieces of life that I think are ridiculous and help make people laugh at them.
Kind of zooming out, not just stand-up in Seattle, but even life in Seattle. When did you first get here?
I got here in the fall of 2013.
What was it like moving here? Did you feel a sense of community? What were your thoughts when you got here?
When I first got here, I at first was like, this place is really pretty, like very gorgeous. And it felt a little bit like, man, I think the white people been keeping secrets. Because all I ever heard was it rains so much, and don't want to go there. And then I got here, and of course it was in a beautiful season. Gorgeous. And so I was just immediately struck by the natural beauty of this place. But I also had some friends who had connected me with their family that was out here. So I immediately had like a little social event at my house to say hi to people. And there were 40 people there. So I started out with a little bit of like eager puppy energy of trying to just build community. And some of those relationships stuck. So I feel like I had a really easy time at first plugging in. But over time, a lot of those people moved. And it's been a little jarring to see how many people have left and what has happened to just the turnover of my network. But when I first got here, I plugged right into a lot of people.
But yeah, turnover and change, I feel like, is the theme of the city in general right now. But yeah, I mean, community itself is a big theme here related to Hey Black Seattle. So I wonder if you could just tell us the story of Hey Black Seattle. How did that vision come to you? How did that happen?
Yeah. So after I left Microsoft, which was in 2021, at that point, a lot of people had already started leaving the region that were in my circle. So there was a bit of a community turnover for me in what was happening to all of our social lives because of the pandemic. Then there was the turnover in my social life because of leaving a corporation that I had been at for almost a decade. Then there was some turnover in my social life because I had just gotten divorced. There was just a lot happening. And I looked up and I said, well, I think I'm in a moment where I actually have to rebuild my entire social fabric of my life out here for me and my daughter. And for me, I was like, well, if I'm going to do that, I would like to have it in a way that incorporates the artist in me, because that was a part of me that I felt like had gotten quieted over the course of my corporate career. But then I also wanted it back with Black people. Like I wanted to be very intentional about being surrounded and just saturated with Blackness, because love a good multicultural life, learn a lot of things, but sometimes I just really needed to feel that kind of immersion in what felt like home for me. And so I got a download. It was like, I still know that it was June 4th. We're about to be back on the anniversary of that day, June 4th of 2023, I think, where I got this message that said, if you do that for yourself, if you figure out how to create a situation for you and your kid where you can be surrounded by Blackness in Seattle, Washington, you should do that for other people too. And that is the origin. I just was like, well, shoot, I'm going to be obedient to this assignment, because if I can do that, I think a lot of people's lives will be better.
In interviews, you have said that isolation is one of the most powerful tools of oppression. When we're talking about this, what does that mean to you in this context?
But when I think about any people who are, I will say, living in diaspora all over, no matter where you come from, you're separated from something. You're spread out, you're dispersed from something that means something to the culture that you come from. So disconnection has just been part of what disempowers people when you feel a little bit disconnected from the source of what makes your culture rich, or what gives you your sense of self in a way. And we see that in the big story of, for my people being pulled away from our motherland in Africa and then put somewhere. But then it keeps happening in modern ways too. Every time a young person is like, you know what, I'm going to go to college across the country, then you get separated from your family. And that's, it's purposeful. You go to that place for a reason, but then you're setting up shop in a place where you don't have the village that gives you some cushion to get some things done, to try new things, to take some risks. When you get separated from your community of support, you have just less ability to just thrive. And now you get into that survival mode where you're rebuilding things that could have been part of the fabric of your life if you were not disconnected from something. And so I do think that when you look at things like gentrification and how that happens, or you look at just city planning, how roads get put through Black communities, there's so many ways that disconnecting people and just unresting them from their base is built into how things work. You have a lot of people who don't even know, why do I feel so destabilized? But there's disconnection is baked into our society. And I speak about that as a Black person, but I swear that if every single person in this room thought a little bit about what have you been disconnected from, you could figure out something that you lost in your ability to thrive because you're disconnected from some source of something that gives you power for yourself. And I think generally, as a society, we are encouraged to be destabilized as individuals in that way.
Yeah, it seems like so much of what Hey Black Seattle is doing is helping to nurture connections that already exist or help connect people who are here. I've seen you say in various interviews or on Instagram and everything like about how one of the origin stories of Hey Black Seattle was also a frustration with this narrative of like there aren't any Black people in Seattle, and you're like, hold on.
Because I exist. I don't know if you can see me sitting here. I'm Black and I'm here. And there's actually 300 or so thousand Black people in the greater Seattle area. And when you say that number, that's a lot of people. It's a lot of opportunities to meet. However, it's usually spoken about as a percentage. And so when you talk about the percentage of people that is relative to other folks, well, that's a single digit number. And when you just focus on that, it feels a little bit more less hopeful. You're like, oh, it's only 5%. So I'm never in. And then your lived experience is you go to the grocery store, you go to work, you go wherever you're going to go, and you're surrounded by people who are not Black. So you feel that percentage and you forget about the hundreds of thousands that are here. And so my hope is that can be a little bit of a Black bat signal and just be like, there's some Black people right there. There's some Black people right there. I just want to make it easier for people to find where are those 300,000 Black people that I'm not experiencing because we're not a dense population here. Even if we're not a dense population here, the quality of each one of those 300,000 lives still matters.
How has Hey Black Seattle evolved since you started it?
Whew. Well, one of the best evolutions of Hey Black Seattle has been like, there are people volunteering to help me now. So I just dropped a volunteer off at Black Wall Street downtown in the CD because there's a whole big, beautiful event that Africatown is hosting. And so to be able to be here to talk about Hey Black Seattle, but knowing that there's a volunteer that's representing Hey Black Seattle at Black Wall Street feels really good because those early months just on the floor in my living room, planning out what the website was going to be, running around with my T-shirts in the trunk. They're still in the trunk, but trying to just get people to hear what I was working on, that it has felt good to know that there's like a little crew of people called the Hey Black Seattle Volunteer Squad that believe in what I'm doing and want to help. So that is one way that's a really positive evolution. Another thing that has come up is I think that as it got more and more popular, now we have a good amount of people following Hey Black Seattle on Instagram. I think there's confusion a little bit of people thinking, oh, this is like a social media influencer, which is a thing, but that's not the fullness of what's going on here. And so there's more of an urgency or more of a need for me to tell the story about what this is really about. Whereas before, it's like, I just go to people's events and I'll tell these people. And as it gets bigger, I think it just becomes a bigger thing to get my arms around to be able to share what it's really about.
Yeah, I wonder if you could share a story that comes to mind for you about Hey Black Seattle and its impact. Is there something like that really sticks with you? Is it doing what you hoped it would do?
It is doing what I hoped it would do. And I'm just smiling because yesterday I got a text message from a physician, Dr. Margaret Tawalawi. She sent me a text that said, I just wanted you to know that I got an inquiry for a potential big contract. And the person told me that they found out about me on Hey Black Seattle. And I was just like, these are the victory notes that let me know that it's working. But it's also moments like people who met at meetups that I've done, and then they still hang out. That right there is gold, because that's the whole point. When I do a meetup, it's not for you to meet me. That is pointless. I mean, it's going to be a good time, but that's not the point. The point is for you to find somebody who possibly lives in your neighborhood, works where you work, but you can continue on a relationship. There's so much kind of event-based interaction where people kind of just see each other out at social events, but then they don't continue to have a relationship. I'm hopefully putting people in the path of similarly interested folks, like-minded people who like what you like. I want the candle making folks to find somebody to make candles with. I want the cat lovers to find the cat lovers. But if you want those people to be Black, then here is the opportunity for you to find with that filter in place. And so getting those stories, and people do text me them and DM me those stories, that they have actually met people and they're making relationships, that is how I know it's working.
We've talked a lot about your own experience with Hey Black Seattle, and then there's also these big picture themes that we're kind of touching on. And one of them that we touched on a little earlier too in another session is this narrative that Seattle's a progressive place and people have a lot of thoughts on it. But I just wonder, based on your experience being here now 12 years, have you experienced Seattle to be a progressive place? And you've lived all over the country.
Yeah, I grew up in the Deep South. And after college in the South, I moved to the East Coast. So I've lived in New Jersey, New York, Atlanta, Louisiana, and now Seattle. I would say I see Seattle's progressive aspirations. And especially being a mom here, this is where it's like, I don't want to lie to Seattle about what you're doing. My kid says to me, she calls this a low empathy environment, because people are smiling, but they don't mean it. And that's hard. That's hard to process. I'm like, okay, from the lens of a child, to say, I see the smile, but when it comes time to actually take care of the needs of people, then that next step of really like digging into, okay, well, what is happening? There's something happening here where we get to the surface and we get to good intentions. And I don't know if this is specific to Seattle itself, but I feel it here, where there's still something that's not penetrating, where the almost like radical is a suit to put on, where it's like it's an outfit. I'm going to be the image of I care. But when it really comes time to like care, I think a lot of the same people over and over are stepping into the arena to really fight fights for other people and for people's rights. But a lot of people are cosplaying as progressive and radical or whatever it might be because they think it sounds cool. And it's in the way. It's sucking up revolutionary energy. It's sucking up actual, like when you take up that space and you present yourself as if you're going to do the work, you then siphon off strength from a movement. And it's really sad.
Do you think Seattle has anything to learn or anything you could take from other places that you've lived?
That's a lovely question. I feel like because I was different in those places, it's almost hard for me to even make the comparison. I was in my 20s when I was in Atlanta. I was being, I would say, corporately battered in New York. I wasn't focused on how New York was handling the situation. I was trying to survive the publishing industry. By the time I got here, I think that's when I could take a breath and really look around at like, well, how is all the things that I learned at Spelman about feminism and all that, how are these things actually playing out? I feel like I got more of an ability myself to assess what was happening around me and if it made sense and if it was real or not. I don't think I had that maturity when I was in my 20s or a young mom when I was in New York. So it's hard for me to say that. I think that the entire country has issues with people who have learned that they don't matter in many ways in their own lives. And so it's very easy to treat other people like they don't matter either. And I don't think people really even are processing this, that we have been taught that individually what's happening to you doesn't matter. You go to work, you go wherever it is, you really get taught to just override the pain that you're feeling about your daily experience. Figure out another way to get past it. And so because we're each overriding our pain, we're not focusing on solving the pains of the people around us, because I'm not letting mine be real, yours not real either. That is for all of us, Seattle, Atlanta, Detroit, everybody, to be like, hold on, what am I overriding about my life? And what am I expecting someone else to override and ignore that is really bad that's happening? So we haven't learned how to matter to ourselves. We're letting these systems bat us around like little tennis balls. But I think that that's more of what it is. It's not a Seattle-focused thing. I think individually we all have some work to do.
Wow. Thank you so much, Kiesha. We're out of time. It's I know, sad. But there will be a Q&A opportunity after this, right over there. So thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you for the space.
Thanks for listening to the third episode of Northwest Reports Live. Be sure to check out the other 3 episodes, which are available right now wherever you get your podcasts. This episode of Northwest Reports was produced by Maliha Syed and me, Sarah Bernard. The story editor was Ryan Famuliner. Our executive producer is Sarah Menzies. Our production manager is Adam Brown. Thanks to Scott Michael for his help with editing this episode. You can subscribe to Northwest Reports wherever you listen, and whatever platform you're listening on, please review us. We'd love to know what you think of the show. Northwest Reports is made possible by listeners like you. Your support will tell the stories that shape Washington State. Join the members who help us create Northwest Reports. Your donation will be put to work right away, delivering the Cascade PBS lineup of podcasts, video docuseries, and daily in-depth reporting you and so many rely on. In addition to supporting our journalism, members receive great member benefits, including Cascade PBS Passport, with extended access to an on-demand library of local and PBS favorites. Go to cascadepbs.org/NW Reports to sign up today. For the latest political, investigative, and cultural coverage from the Pacific Northwest, visit cascadepbs.org. That's also where you'll find Northwest Reports Live. I'm Sarah Bernard. We'll be back soon with another episode.